Welcome to today's episode of Surgical Podcast. We are going to explore how technology, innovation, and evidence-based practices are reshaping the operating room. We are diving deep into one of the most transformative yet challenging advancements in modern surgery, which is robotic-assisted surgery. While robotic systems like the Da Vinci surgical systems, ROSA and Mako have revolutionized precision and patient outcomes, they also represent significant barriers, particularly in cost and surgical team training. So in this episode, we're going to explore the financial and training challenges that are introduced with this, how surgical robotics have evolved and what problems they were designed to solve, and lastly, evidence-based solutions and strategies hospitals are using to make robotics more accessible and sustainable. So basically, in the end, you'll have a clear picture of where robotic surgery stands today and what can be done to further innovate this procedure and make it more practical for everyday surgeries. So first, I want to start with a bit of context. Surgical robotics isn't something new. It actually goes back to the 1980s and 1990s when researchers and engineers sought to minimize human error and enhance precision in minimally invasive surgery. So the Da Vinci surgical system, which was introduced around year 2000, it marked a turning point for robotic surgery. So surgeons began to use this procedure to help them out, and they started off with a surgery of the human wrist. They then began to do clinical studies. The last study was done in 2017, and it basically showed that robotic assisted procedures often resulted in shorter hospital stays, less infections, and a reduced amount of blood loss during the procedure. However, the benefits do come with a very hefty price tag. A single robotic system can cost anywhere from $1 million to about $2.5 million. And it also costs money to maintain it, around maybe $100,000 to $200,000. This does not include the instrument replacement costs, which can range from about $700 to $1,500 per instrument, and it only has a limited amount of uses. So with all that being said, it brings us to the main issue today, which is the cost and training barriers that limit the access to this technology, mainly in smaller hospitals and areas of healthcare that are not yet fully developed to handle this. So we're going to go ahead and break down the cost and training barriers. So number one, there is a high initial investment. So for a hospital to go from no robotic assistance to having a robotic system, it's not just buying the robot and going into surgery. They also have to have the infrastructure to support it. So they would have to upgrade their operating rooms, they would need special instruments, and they will also need to train the entire surgical staff on how to work side by side with this machine. In 2022, there was a study in the health technology assessment, and it found that for most hospitals, the robotic surgeries, they have to be performed frequently, mainly like 200 to 300 times a year, just for the machine cost to break even financially. So a smaller community hospital, which doesn't even do that many surgeries, it wouldn't make sense for them to make that investment at all because it's economically risky, even though the success rate is high. Another thing is the instrument repair and maintenance, which is a major issue. Like the robotic arms and the tools, they're often limited to about 10 uses before you have to retire them. And this is a mandated instruction from the maker itself. So, for example, a life cycle may be 12 uses, and it'll be perfectly functional for the 12 times, and on the 13th time, if you try to use it, it's considered non-operational. This creates a cycle of waste and cost. Hospitals have reported annual instrument costs exceeding $150,000 a year just to maintain it, and as of right now, they don't have the budget costs or the proposals to get grants in order to cover that funding. Additionally, there is training. So even if a hospital can afford the system, there is a human learning curve, which is another challenge. To use robotic surgery, it requires supervised cases, simulation, and oftentimes it takes about 20 to 30 different surgeries to be performed before a surgeon gains the proper knowledge to maintain the robotic machine. Okay, and while robotic surgery often is undeniable with clinical advantages, these barriers mean that many hospitals, especially those in rural areas and those that are underfunded, just simply can't afford to participate in this type of surgery, even though it is beneficial. Now we are going to discuss solutions and strategies. So, number one, it could be a multi-hospital shared robotics program. So, with this approach, the same health system can share one robotic platform. A great example would be from the Mayo Clinic Health System. It uses centralized scheduling models to allow multiple facilities to access a single robot. So this basically reduces downtime and maximizes the utilization. And with that, a lot of money can be saved because it's shared costs. According to a 2023 case study published in the American Journal of Surgery, this approach reduced per procedure costs by up to 35% without compromising patient access. Another solution would be to have hospitals have options with lower upfront costs and similar instrument design, allowing for easier maintenance and extended instrument life. Another solution would be virtual reality simulation training. So instead of having a class, they can take VR-based surgical training, which significantly improves the performance and reduces the learning curve. Furthermore, this training can be standardized and scalable, allowing entire teams from surgeons to surgical techs to train together without occupying an actual operating room. Lastly, they can also offer refurbished robotic machines. So this could lower the cost by about 40 to 60%. There are companies that do specialize in refurbished robotic surgical machines. And by integrating data analytics to track these outcomes, hospitals can present a stronger case for return on investment, not just in dollars, but in patient safety and satisfaction. So before we wrap up, let's take a look ahead, because the next decade of surgical robotics isn't just about better technology, but about responsible integration. We're now seeing an emerging generation of AI-assisted robotic systems. For example, researchers at Johns Hopkins University developed a robot called STAR which successfully perform surgeries with higher precision and consistency that experienced human surgeons have not been able to do. This doesn't mean robots will replace surgeons. Instead, it signals a future where robots act as precision extensions of human expertise, analyzing tissue tension, spacing, and real-time vital data, while the surgeon focuses on decision-making and patient safety. As you know, humans are more empathetic and they are in the moment, and a robot is just programmed to do what you program it to do. However, this evolution also raises ethical and practical questions. Who's responsible if one of these machines makes an error? Is it the maker? Is it the surgeon? Or is it the hospital? How do we ensure data privacy, especially as AI-driven robots collect patient information? A 2023 review in Frontiers in Surgery emphasizes the need for regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines before robotic procedures become a routine thing. As healthcare professionals, understanding these discussions is as vital as mastering the tools themselves. It's also worth highlighting how these advancements affect surgical technologists and support staff. The introduction of robotics has transformed the role from a purely manual assistant to a technology specialist. Technologists must now understand system calibration, troubleshooting robotic arms, and even interpreting digital data. The Association of Surgical Technologists has published several continuing education modules addressing these skills, recognizing that tomorrow's techs need both clinical and digital fluency. And that's where opportunity lies. Those who master robotic workflows will find themselves at the forefront of surgical innovation, bridging the gap between hands-on patient care and high-precision technology. Okay, so we're at the conclusions and takeaway portion. So we're going to recap what we discussed today. Robotic assisted surgery represents a remarkable leap forward in patient outcomes, but the financial and training barriers remain a real concern, especially for community hospitals and surgical programs operating under really tight budgets. However, as we've seen, there are possible solutions. Number one, a hospital can have a shared system to maximize usage and make it more economically friendly. Number two, competitors can drive prices down. So if multiple makers make the same machine, it'll put them in competition with each other and potentially save money for the hospitals. Third, there is possibly VR-based training, which can reduce the learning curve and improve safety, so it wouldn't have the surgeons and the surgical staff in an actual operating room. And lastly, outcome-driven approaches are making robotics more financially sustainable, a modular machine. So for surgical professionals and students, the key takeaway is the future of surgery is robotic, but it does need some work. If a person is entering into this field, they do need to invest time in learning about robotic workflow, instrument management, and simulation training tools. These skills will not only make the person more employable, but also prepare them to lead in a rapidly evolving healthcare environment. And as we know, artificial intelligence, robots is taking over. And for hospitals and administrators that could possibly be listening to this, they can consider how shared resources, vendor partnerships, and training innovation can bring robotic precision to more patients, not just those at very large, well-funded institutions. Thank you so much for joining my podcast today. If you would like to learn more, I would recommend you check out a few journals, such as the Journal of Robotic Surgery, the American Journal of Surgery, as well as the Society of Robotic Surgery website, which offers free educational materials and global research updates. Until next time, stay skilled, stay curious, and keep pushing forward.